Good evening. Good evening. How are you guys doing?
Evening.
Fantastic.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I love the fact that you guys make me super excited. I'm so corny. Anyway, you guys make me super excited, and I start seeing beeps coming in. And then I start running around like a mad woman at 6:45. I'm thinking, oh my days, am I late? And then I see, like, wow, you guys are dedicated, man. That is so freaking awesome. So that makes my whole evening. I mean, imagine, corny little girl I am. You guys had a good day today?
Yes, good day in Cape Town.
Oh, lovely stuff. Make us make us jealous, Luyilo, and tell us about the weather. Is the weather anything like really proper?
Nah, it's comfortable. It's comfortable.
Okay, I like that. It's comfortable. Okay, Maureen says hi. Hey, everyone. Anyone that is joining on YouTube, let's see if there's any hello highs in the comments below. The chats are happening. Cool stuff. Now, I always like to share things that like touch me in a way. So today, while we're waiting for others to come in, right? Because we're starting shop. Today, I was reading a book, and I always find myself on a daily basis picking up a book and at least, at minimum, reading 2 pages. Some people will say, really, 2 pages, just 2 pages. So for me, even if it's just 2 pages, it means something to me, right? In my world. And so I was reading this book and it struck me. There was a passage of info that like really stuck home that I thought tonight I must share this. And so it goes something like this. Uh, I don't know if I shared it last night. Just stop me if I did, though, because there was repetition in the story I read. Anyway, it goes something like this. When you get to knowing some stuff, you feel like because you hadn't known these new pieces of information, you feel like there's nothing more that you need to know. But the more you explore, the more stuff you get to knowing, and you actually realize after a short while of investigating a new subject that, sure, I didn't know what I didn't know. So that's really just like the synopsis of the story. So I want to encourage you all that those of you that are starting within the property space, if you feel like, well, Jen, we went slow last night. There's a lot of information that I know. It's all good. Stick with us and let's just take this, right through. But for those of you that have felt like, you know what, last night was a lot to take in, and I'm really happy that I came. I also want to encourage you, let's stick right through because it's going to get more and more exciting. So that's really just the synopsis of things. And I really do believe that when we start to get out in a discipline, sometimes we think we know what we know. And I can tell you already today, there's so many things that I am still learning about property, and I'm 5 years in. And when you start off on a new venture or adventure, as I prefer to call it, you start realizing there's so many more layers to the things that excite you than what meets the naked eye. And that's for me the most beautiful thing is that I may be able to teach people from the beginning, like really grassroots level. I may be able to help people get unstuck. I may be able to help people get to the next level. But what is also really important in that helping process is that I also start seeing different things and I start seeing life differently when you come through with different questions. So I'm very excited tonight to be learning a lot more from you guys. So I've got 2 pieces of really exciting news. The first piece is I have secured the attorney for tomorrow. I always feel like that girl right now. And I'm very excited to say that Sona Stain will join us tomorrow. I think it was Carrie that spoke about eviction law. When you spoke about eviction law, Silna was the first name that came to my mind. And I thought, oh, I wonder if I bother her at this late hour, will she indulge me? And I'm really, really blessed to be surrounded by a power team that have become friends. And this new friend of mine, and I call her still a new friend because it still feels like our friendship needs so many more layers. We've been friends for about almost a year and a half, but we've known each other the last 4 years. We've been in each other's space over the last 4 years. And I remember as we were closing off 2019, I must remember the years, when we were closing of 2019, I reached out to her and I said to her, in 2020, I want to take my coaching to the next level, specifically in rentals. And I'm also interested in starting a course that talks a lot more around evictions and understanding the eviction process. And we got to meeting, we got to having a conversation. But the day that we did get to meeting and having this conversation, we spoke about everything in the kitchen sink except what we actually met for. And we were able to connect on so many different levels. The second component to that, when we eventually met again, we got down to the nuts and bolts, and she helped me take my coaching to a new level, specifically around rentals last year. And so for me, whenever I need some superpowers around attorneys, I turn to Solna, I turn to Bruno Samao. And so for me, those two people are really the two people that I lean on because I've worked with them. I've worked with them on different spheres within property investing. So, long story short, we got us an attorney tomorrow, and she's pretty darn sharp. She's also very good at property wholesaling and actually understanding the legalities of that. So, Luyolo, this one, like your questions, my guy, hits her with the samurai sword where you need to. So I really look forward to her also helping in that perspective as well. The last time I ran a property wholesaling course was in November, and she came in and she literally helped my students in the first 30 to 45 minutes. And she spoke her heart out around the legalities and how you can avoid some of the problems that we get into and how we can actually use the system to better ourselves. So that is a mouthful, I know, about Solna, but I'm really hoping that those that are interested in evictions, those that are talking to me about the different offer to purchase clauses, and those that are interested in property wholesaling slash being a sourcing agent, that your questions you come through, let's see how much of her 30 minutes we can get her talking about the things that you need. So that's tick box number one. The second thing is I have been able to secure 3 students, actually 4, because the 2 come as a duo. So maybe she'll come with her sister or not. Tomorrow, there's also a student of mine that she joined me in the last training during COVID, like I'm doing the 4-day training this week. She joined me in the 4-day training last year in COVID, and it was amazing to meet her. She said to me, when I'd seen some of your adverts on Facebook, I just thought yet another coach blowing their trumpets. But then when she got to meeting me, she found a very different person that she assumed that I was. I was really grateful for that. But through this time, we've worked together. And what was amazing is that she's been able to close the deal. She made me nervous. She made me very, really nervous. But, we're just really, really thankful that she's been able to close that deal. And then the second part of the point number 2 is that there are 2 wholesalers joining us on Wednesday. So I've been very busy today. Can you guys see? Because I'm really wanting to bring a holistic view for you to see what's going to work for you so that you can start off from the most informed decision that I could assist you making. So these 2 newbie wholesalers, property sourcing agents, however we want to call them, will join us on Wednesday just before we do the numbers. One I met because at 10 to 12 on New Year's Eve 2020 into New Year's Day 2021, I was trying to understand who's booking a coaching call with me. And I had met him a couple of days after that booking, and we really just got into understanding who we are in the space, and he's been able to get moving. And then the second person that is wholesaling, he's recently also started He, in fact, started his journey of understanding property investing in December. So I had my first class with this guy in coaching on the 15th of December. And I chuckled to myself because I certainly attract the most peculiar people, probably because I consider myself just a tad bit peculiar, methinks. Okay, so enough of all of that. I just thought, it would be fair to give you a quick rundown as to what I've been up to today and what you can expect over the next 2 days. So, my question to you guys this evening, any of the information that I shared with you, does it make you happy? And if it does, in the comments and in the chat, type yes. It doesn't make anybody happy. Did I say all of that for nothing? Okay. As I walk along, as I move along swiftly. No, let me not be that girl that wants to mess with you guys. Okay, let me not mess with you guys too much. But that's me being excited. Yes, yes is coming through. We see you. We see you. Like almost for a moment, I wanted to lick my horns. Thank you, Kerry, Samuel, Nare. I mean, you guys are absolutely awesome. Luyolo, Masola, Mpumi, everyone. I must chuckle, I must tease just a tad bit. So before we get into today's content, I first want to give you a warning alert. Tonight, there is going to be a mouthful said around property. That's one. The second component to the mouthful that's said around property today is that we're going to learn a lot of content. Okay. And while learning this content, it's not going to take away anything, but this is just the onset of us learning a lot of content. But in the description, in the comments, what I would love to hear from you is the following. When you sat down to do your homework today, what came up for you? That's what I would love to hear. I would love to hear what came up for you, whether it be emotions or whether it be thoughts or whatever the case is. What came up for you? Because I'm certain that many of you still believe and you will hold true for the strategy that you are interested in. But what came through to you, especially because we spoke about it quite a bit yesterday, right? I want to hear what came through for you today in your homework. Those of you that are on YouTube, that does not exempt you from answering. I would love to hear from you guys what went through, what came through for you, what popped for you. What is it that you actually felt like, yeah, this properly ticks the boxes for me type of vibe. That's what I would love to hear from you. Cool. Let's see. Has any of the comments come through? I can see there are people coming through. Let me let them into the room. Let me let them into the room. Cool. While I'm letting new people into the room, there we go. I want to hear from you. Leonel says yes. Oh, Edgar says yes. I see you guys were answering earlier. I want to hear from you what came through. Don't be shy to answer. You don't have to get very personal about it. But I really would love to hear that in terms of thinking about your strategy, what is your financial point and what's going to work for you, what came through for you in this particular space. Cool. While I'm waiting, I shall sip on me green tea. Yesterday, I let it get cold for too long. What came through for you today? Was there any reinforcements? I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I don't want to preempt anything. But for those of you that may have done your homework, what came through for you? And while you're typing that, for some of you, at least I've gotten through all my emails today. I've sent the ebook to those that requested. So a reminder, if you had requested the ebook, you were thinking about it, you may have requested it in the chat. Don't forget to reply to any one of my emails I've sent you over the last few days, and I will send you that PDF. Cool. It looks like some of you may be. Okay. No, Carrie, my girl, you are on top of things. Now, Carrie is my girl. Like from now onwards, Carrie is my girl and Luyolo is my boy. I'm just thinking like, you guys just brighten my day. Okay. Really, I thought hard and went through this video again. And yes, more emotion did come out. I thought about my strength, my willpower and desire and passion for property and just my way forward. Awesome stuff. Those are your truths. That's something that you need to look at in the grand scheme of life. So that is an awesome reflection. Kerry Luyolo says, considering my age, what came through was help from the positive outcome of sourcing. Now, that's an interesting one, eh? Because I could be very naughty about that because yesterday you called me Auntie Jen. But then again, recently I had taught somebody that was old enough to call me mom, and he was 24. So, so I could imagine if you are in the spectrum of in your early 20s. I'd even taught somebody that was 17 that wanted to become a wholesaler. So, oh, you're 18. Definitely, you can call me Auntie Jen. Keep going. Awesome stuff. There's hope. There certainly is hope as long as you team up with the right people. In fact, a young gentleman, his name is Katleho, he had gone through property wholesaling with me not so long ago. And before I even took him through wholesaling, I first made him jump hoops, like go and learn everything else that you can possibly learn for free before I teach you, because I don't want anyone coming with like trepidation and he worried about his age. And fortunately through Mpumi is here this evening. Hey, Mpumi. I asked Mpumi, Mpumi, are there any younger generation real estate agents that I can connect somebody with? Because he's just a bit worried about working as a wholesaler at his age. And Mpumi opened the floodgates for us. And then I was comfortable teaching Katleho. So yes, Luyolo, that is amazing. Whoop, whoop. I feel so proud. You should be surprised. Proud of yourself, Mpumi. You literally created breakthrough in somebody's space by connecting him to the younger generation of real estate agents that would be able to understand where he's going to. Sinehlantla said, after thinking hard and having an interesting conversation with a friend, I decided to choose sourcing as my strategy to start with. Awesome stuff. So, ladies and gents, I want to say thank you so much for the feedback. The feedback is amazing. It means a lot to me because then I know that I'm doing this and you guys are taking some of this information into consideration. So without much ado, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the thick of things tonight. And again, I would love that we are interactive. I would love that we bring our best to the table. So please, I beg of you that we could have the conversations that we've been having, and connect the way we can. Cool stuff. There we go. Technology. Righty then. So tonight we're going to be talking about how to find property investing opportunities. What I will also do as we're going through this particular content, where there is homework to be done, I will give you a few videos that I will make reference to that I have done in the recent past about the topic that we are on. And the one video that immediately comes to mind, it's because I'm just trying to also cram as much as the detailed coaching that I go through, which is literally 30 hours. I'm putting snippets of that coaching stuff in here for anyone that you know that at least for the basic stuff you can start with. So in terms of how to find investing opportunities, I first want to hear from you in the chat and in the comments below. How do you find property investing opportunities? I would love to hear from you. How do you find? Where do you go to find these property investing opportunities? Kerry says property 24. So is Kerry the only one that finds property investing opportunities, guys? Driving for dollar. So for those that don't know what driving for dollars mean, you basically drive the neighborhood to understand what's happening in that particular neighborhood, okay? And then you start looking out for property that may be distressed. You start looking out for property that is run down, property that has been neglected. You take those details down and you're able to start tracking down different people, or rather the owners. Pumi says real estate agents. Of course, please contact Pumi when you are in Centurion. He knows what you're looking for. Rather make that Pretoria because he's your guy in that area, right? Sinatlantis says property 24 and private property. Samuel says my roof. Let's see. Tanda Zile says property 24 OLX. Maureen says OLX. Gumtree property 24. And Tombi says Gumtree. So, okay, cool. So now we know the avenue that we will find these different properties, right? My question to you is when you are finding these opportunities, what are you looking for? Because oftentimes we get confused by what we're looking for when we get onto these channels, right? So I want to try and refine some of the thinking, just in case you may be the person that is like, Jen, Joe, this is much. I'm not sure what I'm actually looking for. I get caught up and then I find myself looking at my dream house. I used to be that person. I don't know if I mean I'm not looking for any confessions out there, but if you are that person, I want to hear from you. When you are finding new opportunities, what is it that you are looking out for? Because all right, Edgar also says property networking events. Cool stuff. Edgar's quite on point on that one. Thanks to Kovovo and Tirona. These property networking events are all only happening online, but they're happening nonetheless. All right. So you guys are quite on point. I want to share with you something very basic that I do that I find helps me when I'm looking for property investing opportunities. So everyone has said so much about Property 24. So let me go to my favorite Property 24. For those of you that have been through my training, I go looking for on these different platforms. When I look for properties that um, when I'm looking for the properties, I look for properties that are advertised. Sorry, I look for those properties that have got like one picture or pictures of outside. I remember some time back in my classroom, there was a gentleman. His name is Oscar. Oscar says, Jen, I used to worry about those adverts where they've got only one picture because I would think I'm going to go and view this property and they're going to kidnap me and ask me for ransom. So some of us may have these crazy thoughts and ideas, which is okay. It's allowed. I remember when I was told go and look for distressed properties online, I struggled with that. Like I struggled proper with that. But eventually I just found that, okay, it actually does work when you know what you're looking for. So I want to ask, give me an area to look for in on Property 24. I don't want to go to my own popular areas. I just want to see, and you can see whether it will work for you if you are going online. What properties, let's see, location next to universities. Okay. Let's do something we've not done before. And Tombi must be in Bloemfontein, Willows in Bloemfontein. Okay, cool. Let's try Willows in Bloemfontein. Last night I did give an example and told me the location next to universities of how you can find those, right? So let us now go into Willows, Bloemfontein. Okay. When I go into Property 24, I go to house, apartment, flat, townhouse. And those are the only three I select. I do not touch filters. What I have found in the past is that sometimes when people are categorizing their properties, what happens is it's sometimes a house falls under a townhouse, sometimes a townhouse falls under a flat apartment. So I only just go and select the first three and no other filters. So we found the willows that have come up, clearly Free State Bloemfontein. Now, the one place that I like to play around is order by, okay? Order by, there's two that I prefer using. The first one I use is most recent, not because I care about the most recent. I usually want to scroll down and go to the oldest one. I want to understand the property that has been on the market in Willows in Bloemfontein for the longest time. When was it put onto the market? When I get here, 9 million, not quite my thing that I'm looking for, but for interest sake, I go into it, scroll down, and I see that it is the 8th of March 2018. It could happen for two reasons. The person could have put the property onto the market, right? And then it didn't sell and they stopped, bothering about selling it. And they eventually came back onto the market and then reactivated this property. So maybe it may not be 2 years, 3 years, but maybe it could be. And this is where I like to start, all right? Because here it gives you a whole story of what is happening. And so my first thing is that if I am looking for a 14-bedroom apartment block, and this ticks off what I am looking for, I would then want to call Heidi. And the reason I would call Heidi, because it shows her name here, right? Show contact details. I would then want to call Heidi. Why would I want to call Heidi? Hi, Heidi. I see that you've got an apartment block for sale and I would like to have a look at it. I'll go and have a look at it and I'll say, Heidi, I see that it's been on the market for a while. What has happened over this last while with the sale of this property? It starts a conversation that I would never have had with anybody, or with a real estate agent for that matter, right? And eventually I will get to understanding what's been happening. But because that's not the price range I look at, I will then scroll back out and I will look a little bit further up. Let's see. There we go. 1 bedroom. Okay, this may just call out to me. This is a wonderful opportunity, they say. Okay, allow you to rent out her bed to students. Okay, there we go, the 28th of November 2019. So I would then call Dylan and I would want to find out from Dylan what's been happening with this particular property on the market. It looks really clean and neat inside. I would then want to go and view it and actually understand, but what's going on? Okay. And so that's where I would want to start. And the reason, again, like I shared with you, when I start off conversations with property that's been on the market for a very long time, I start understanding the challenges that particular property practitioner / real estate agent is having. And then I ask them, especially if it's run down, I would then say to them, okay, do you have any other apartments that looks like this? If it meets your criteria of being distressed, I would like you to show me those as well. How long have they also been on the market? Because here, when you actually look at the description, they're suggesting that you rent this particular property out to students. So my thinking is that if you can make a good income with that, why is the owner not doing that? There has to be an underlining or motivating factor that this particular person just doesn't want to actually sell. This person, why they want to sell. So that's the first thing that I start looking out for. As I go through all the different adverts, I then start looking for those adverts with pictures that are only of outside. When there's pictures of only outside, it raises an alarm to me. Why? Because at the end of the day, think about Instagram. There are some people that will post a picture of themselves, but 12 versions of those pictures of themselves because they were standing at a slightly different angle. And when you want to show off something, you're going to show everything, right? But when you are trying to hide something, so to speak, online, you will only show what is necessary. And this is why I start off with something on that nature. The second thing that I look for here with order by is from low to high. The reason I want to know from low to high is because, you see, look at this. This comes up at low to high, but it's been on the market forever and a day. Why I want to look at something from low to high, I want to see how prices gradually go up in the market. So we see these 1-bedroom apartments, they're going slowly, slowly. All of a sudden, there's a 2-bedroom apartment, okay? And it's the same price as a 1-bedroom apartment. And then I want to know instinctively, I wonder how far are these apartments from each other. But then I read this bachelor unit was converted into 2 fair-sized bedrooms. The bedrooms have 3-quarter beds as well. So then I'm thinking, well, okay, sure. Let me go and view this, but I will ask a question like, so what do the body corporates say about converting this bachelor unit into a 2-bedroom unit, right? I would want to find out something like that. And I'll keep going. And in the Willows, yeah, they're saying investors, this is your time to make profit on make this property of use. Okay, cool. Let's see. When I start looking, so why do they call investors? This probably assumption on my side as I go through. This is probably a traditional investor because in my mind, I'm trying to understand, well, besides the fact that it's close to taxis and a student accommodation, another unit has been turned into the bachelor unit has been converted into 2 bedrooms. Again, I want to know, is this one and the previous one that I saw close to each other? Now what starts happening, guys? I'm having dialogue with what I am looking at. Now, when I look at it nicely, it's actually exactly the same block, right? I wonder, just for a moment, I wonder, is it maybe not the same property? Let's go in here quickly. You see, this is the story of how I start questioning. Hey, they look together on some level. They look a lot together. Maybe it's the same property. Maybe it's an open mandate. So now I'm starting to collect data. And this is for me the power of when you are finding an investment opportunity and you're doing desktop research, the aim is to try and understand what's happening in the area. And the more I go through those properties, the more I interrogate certain things, right? And then I find myself wanting to ask that question. Should I go and see that one? Should I go and see that one? Should I go and see that one? Because now I'm just building, because I don't really know what it looks like inside. Now I'm building pictures in my mind. And if I build pictures in my mind, I call all those different people, right? And then I'm wanting to know, I wonder what's going to work for me. So, in my encouragement to you today is that when you are looking and online and you are looking for investing opportunities, have that question in your mind. What goes for what in this particular space? Okay. My question to you right now is, do you have any challenges around finding property investing opportunities? Drop in the comments and in the chat below, yes. And when you drop in your yes, share with me what is your challenge so that we can talk through that particular challenge right now. So Kerry has challenges. What is your challenge, Kerry? Let's see, does anyone say anything on YouTube? Let me not neglect YouTube. This is why I keep killing my sharing. Edenvale Central. Okay, cool. Edenvale Central. I've never looked in that area. My previous coach, that was his area of choice, and that's far away from home. But the aim of me asking for the area was to say, when you're looking online, what sort of conversations do you have? And I chose Willows in Bloemfontein because I've not looked in Bloemfontein. And I wanted to show that when you're looking, you start interrogating and having those conversations where you can actually start off from. Cool stuff. The prices, the property prices. What about the property prices, Kerry? So the rental income. what we will do, Mpumi, remember that paperwork we spoke about. The numbers on Wednesday will answer how we look at rental income to assess whether this is an opportunity or not. So the numbers on Wednesday will answer that particular question. I just want to hear from Kerry in terms of prices. What does she mean? They are high in the areas I look in where the profit would be low. I hear you. So what makes you look in the areas that you are looking in, Kerry? Is it close to home? Is it up your alley? You feel safe there? What is it? Close to home. Fair enough. So then my thing with you would be, or rather my encouragement with you would be, even though you are looking close to home, start thinking laterally. So this is what I have found over a period of time. So wholesalers, property sourcing agents, here's a piece of information that may help you. When I started looking for properties, I wasn't sure. Like, hey, what price range must I look for? In the classroom, they had this model of 300,000 that they worked on, right? And they gave an example of somebody buying these properties that are worth 300, that are not valued at 300,000, but they run down enough to be 300,000, right? And I just wasn't finding those properties. And one of the days I said to my husband, I wonder if we can find properties of maybe 200,000, because this is my fear that was talking. Back to my confessions. So initially I was like, if we find a property of 200,000, maybe what will happen is that if this deal flops and we end up having to pay anything back, at least it will only be 200,000. Now, in the light of losing 5 million, understand when I said only 200,000, I wasn't being cheeky. I was just being, in my world at that time, realistic. That was my measure of being realistic. And I said to myself, wow, if I can find these properties, I wonder what it would look like. So I was put off with a lot of prices. So I would look through properties for days. And this one day when we did find property in Kempton Park, they were advertising it for 300 and something. So I said, let's just go through and look. And we did. And fortunately, we met Jacques, and there's quite a few connections that we eventually made in Kempton Park, and 5 deals later. Okay. What was cool is the first deal that TJ was talking to Jacques about, he was able to negotiate to 160,000. So in my world, what went through my mind was, oh, thank heavens. And I'm still in this negative space thinking, if this flops, it's just 160. I mean, it's even less than 200,000. Why I was thinking so negative, it's because firstly, I was in debt. Secondly, I had a scarcity mindset. Having a scarcity mindset will put you in a lot of fear. So I tell you the story just to share with you. When I started looking at that price range, it wasn't because of genius, it was because of fear. And eventually, when the deal went through, it was successful. We got the property investor. It was a joint venture, and it shot the lights out. I was like, I shall fear no more. And literally, that first deal took any fear that I had and threw it out the window. And there was the most interesting shift. My shift, what happened at that time was that now, when I was in property investing networks, like Edgar on YouTube mentioned, networking, I found a boldness, because like this thing worked, so of course it's going to work again. And we were closing deals that are like less than 300,000, and we were on fire for a hot minute, right? And I felt like, oh my days, I think I want to stay here. But then a little bit later, what happened, I really believe by coincidence, is that I started realizing many property investors were coming out of the classroom. So they had a happy figure in their mind of 300,000. And that's when I started realizing, oh, okay, even though my fear spoke and I had this breakthrough and I liked this 300 and less bracket, it actually worked for the property investors that I was connecting with at that time. I mean, this is 2017, early 2018. And the more I connected with property investors, I realized my deals between 300 and 500,000 started working. And I felt like I hit the jackpot. You know, when you feel like you're that gal. So at that moment, I felt like 2018, 2019, I felt like that gal. Because even in 2019, I started slowly going up. But the more I went up, there's the but that comes. The air got slightly thinner up there. The day I went over one bar, from the dozens of investors that I'd met, I went down to 7. And I was like, what is this problem here with over 1 million? You know, because I'm finding some of the deals that are 1 million, 1.3, 1.5, and I'm finding anything between 7 and 900K equity in this deal. So I was just trying to understand. So now the moral of the story is this, Kerry, is that sometimes property prices close to home may throw you off. But driving for dollars could be something that could also help you in that particular avenue, because then you're going to start finding those properties in the area that may be worth a lot of money, but because they run down and dilapidated and things like that, then you may start thinking, okay, this is maybe where I would want to play. So again, another layer of the moral of the story is that I found that when I started, my happy place was 500K and less. When I started wholesaling, my happy place was 500K and less. When I went to 600K, I saw a few people falling off the radar. When I hit 700K, I saw questions in people's minds because they still needed to raise closing costs and renovation costs and things like that. And it was closely taking them towards one bar. And with the transfer duty, which is a tax, people don't really like playing over a million. And when they do play over a million, they're fairly seasoned investors that are very fussy. So I tell you guys all of this to say, find a happy place. When you want to start seeing deals go through quicker, or you want to see a faster traction, maybe play in the space where you think, you know what, actually this deal could go faster. It could go faster than normal. If in this area the properties are worth 800,000 and I find something that is 500,000, maybe just maybe this is the property that I'm looking for. So I trust that that is answered and helped you guys really look and start thinking differently, right? Thank you so much for your honesty, Kerry. You say thank you. I think I need to keep looking and not be scared in taking my first step. Definitely. You know, one of the guys that's coming on to visit with us, as I would like to call it, on Wednesday, one of the things he had a challenge with was taking that first step. But when he took that first step, he realized he didn't have to sign an offer to purchase. And in hindsight, I know that he wouldn't mind me sharing that small piece of information. When he realized he didn't have to sign an offer to purchase, it took a lot of burden off of his shoulder. Because I said to him, I'm going to give you a homework and go and look at 3 properties. Next best thing, he comes he comes home. He comes back on a call with me and he says, Jen, I didn't only look at 3. I went wild. So sometimes we just have to identify what is that thing that is holding us back. So I'm wondering, Kerry, if you look in deep inside, what is that one thing that's actually holding you back? Because as I had that coaching session with Nazim, he actually realized as a wholesaler, as a sourcing agent, he doesn't have to sign an offer to purchase the first time you views a property, which really just helped him a great deal. Nari says, question with wholesaling, which one is the best to use, a cash buyer or an investor who gets a bond? Same shoes, different socks. Why I want to quantify that quick answer is that we can continue to discuss that on Wednesday as well. The reason I want to answer it straightforward like that, because a lot of investors still go for bonds. There's investors that go into equity. For me, I don't discriminate. As long as you've got access to the money that you said you're going to have access to, I'm going to go and find the property and we're going to go through this whole process. There is a lot of people that do come out of property investing training, and I was in that same training myself, and we literally talk about we buy houses for cash, we buy homes for cash, everything that's connected to property for cash. It is a hook. Because what happens is during that particular period of time, while you're finding out information, doing your due diligence and things like that, right? People are working on getting a bond fast. So, Nare, wholesaling, I don't discriminate. I just want to know if an investor tells me that they can afford 500,000, my mission in life is to go and look for a deal that starts from 300,000. Why? Because in my mind, I want to know that even if I find something at 350,000 and they can afford 500,000, 500,000 is not my limit that I need to work towards. It is something that I need to keep in my mind. And I also start thinking if it's 500,000 and I go and look for something at about 300,000, this 200,000 will help them in terms of renovations. It will help them in terms of closing costs. It will help them in terms of they need to pay me my money and things of that nature. So I trust that that answers your question. Cool. I want to find out again from you guys because, I love the fact that I get to talking to you. What does a property investment opportunity sound like? What does it sound like? Let me give you a hint. Sometimes somebody says, I am so old. I need to sell my property. What other motivating factors are out there in the world that will make people sell their property? And that's why I say, what does it sound like? While we're busy with that, Edgar says yes, access to owner usually blocked by agent if it's on property 24, and you will not get to understand circumstances of seller firsthand in order to negotiate. Very true. Very, very true. What I've also found is a small little way. I'll show you guys in a minute that I kind of play with something. Okay, whether it's my way of being a stalker. So, and it's going to be to Edgar's point. So, and Tommy, maybe my question wasn't very clear. I'm saying, let me go into it again. What I'm after is to understand when I say what does a property investment opportunity sound like. People that are divorced, they don't want to see each other, right? They want to sell fast. People that are immigrating, they're going to another country. They want to sell fast. Sometimes you'll even find friends of yours going to another city. They want to sell fast. Do you know, factually speaking, because I did the analysis today, I felt so proud of myself because I wanted to give you guys a proper statistic that 75% of the sellers who whose property I came in contact with, they were over the age of 65. 75% of them. I never realized that until I sat down and actually did an analysis on my deals, thinking, who are my motivated sellers? And I started finding 75% of my database of properties that sold, people were over the, like, I was like, wow, I didn't realize that. So at some stage, I was like, okay, that's understandable. They want to scale down. They want to move to a retirement village. They just want to. There's a lot of things that they want to do. Sometimes the children have gone for a ball of chalk. They don't talk to their kids, or their kids are on a vibe of their own, or whatever the case is. And inside their properties look like 1722. It's got that floral carpet. It's got that wallpaper. You know what I mean? It's like you literally stepped into one of those old magazines that say that wives should stay at home and cook and clean. It's like one of those. And I realized, wow, 75%. So that's something interesting that you guys can think of. So I want to find out, now that I've shared that with you, right? What else can you guys think of? Owners who are relocating, yes, those are going overseas, can no longer afford upkeep of the property. Absolutely are on point on that one, Mpumi. Let's see, is anything on YouTube? Edgar says opportunity looks like the 3Ds. Oh, I never saw that coming. So Edgar says it looks like death, divorce, and death, like 3Ds. Edgar Tata. I never saw that coming. My guy. That sounds funny, but it also sounds so naughty. So Edgar says opportunity looks like 3Ds: death, debt, and divorce. And he's spot on with that one, right? Cool stuff. As we move along, I'm going to show you guys a very short video. I have taken the sound out because not so long ago I had answered um, one of my viewers on YouTube when he questioned whether I actually do property wholesaling or not. And I loved the fact that there was interaction and people questioning the viability of what I do. I love that. You know what that gets me excited, because then you you are interested in what people are saying, but you're also interested in getting to the truth. And so what I ended up doing is like all the small little snippets of different things I put together. And so this one video, I thought I will show you a very, very quick example. It may not be as distressed as some of the properties I go for, but when I talk about distressed properties, it looks something like this. So if you don't hear sound, or if you hear music or something like that, you can ignore it. But it was just me trying to give you a quick 1 minute snippet of what a property looks like. Oops, my bad. Now, some not too long ago, I did a video on property viewing tips. One of the things I'd love to encourage you is that when you're out in the field, ask permission. Um, for those of you that have not seen that video, I'll send the link in the homework, right? And I'm going to share with you why I say this. I have found that I was able to get a lot of videos and pictures done when I'm not sneaking around, when I'm transparent and I say to the real estate agent, I eventually crafted my story around wholesaling for the next person to understand it. And it went something like this. I'll say, I'm part of a business. I am the person that looks for the properties on the ground. I'm the one that will go and view the properties and collect the information from you about the property. I'll put it together into a proposal that my business partners understand. After they do some calculations, they will either send me back with the builder so that we can get a quote to make sure that when we do fix up the place, we're not buying the property over market value. So could you afford me the time to take pictures or to take a video or whatever the case is, right? Because I'm collecting information. I know what they're looking for. They don't have the time. I have the time. And in this business, that's what they pay me for. Now, some people will say, there's a lot of people will have something to say about it. But for me, I found crafting my story for the next person to understand what I'm saying without using words. I'm a sourcing agent, I'm a property wholesaler. When you are not learned in the property investing space, some of these words just sound like, wow, Japanese I was talking about last night. Like, wow, sometimes. Hi, there's no robots here. But anyway, sometimes it just sounds like wow, and I found that the more I crafted my story, the better relationship I created. So I've had over time, I've transformed from taking pictures into taking short videos. And then what happened is, before I actually understood the power of YouTube, I used to upload it onto YouTube, put it unlisted so that not everybody sees the video. And I'll drop a link into my proposal. And for those investors that actually wanted to feel the property before coming out, they started getting excited that I'm delivering proposals with links in them to the video. And it was the most amazing thing. So I want to encourage you that when you are viewing, especially if you're coming from a wholesaling perspective, you want to ask permission. You want to go in with your own story that's crafted, not lies. I say go in with the story that's crafted so that the next person understands what you're saying. Okay. I am in a business. I am in the business with a property investor. I've signed a non-disclosure agreement with him. Our business may be finite, which means there's a beginning and an end. But at the end of the day, it was a language over time that a real estate agent understood. Because unlike being in the classroom, they used to teach us to say, I'm a professional property investor. And that used to scare people away. And I never realized that until one day, I just thought, what is it that I say that may not sit so hundreds with somebody, right? Because me and the real estate agents would be vibing and then dololo. I would think, what happened? Like, did I say something to offend them? And when I started assessing the way I speak, I started realizing, hey, man, I'm using some of these property words that sound so high level, wara, wara, wara. Maybe that's why they may not be connecting with me. And so when I started crafting my speech, I dropped the word property investor. Guys, the retention level after that stayed. And I realized in my space, for my world, and the real estate agents I was meeting, they did not like property investors. So when I would talk about my business partners, I would talk about my business partners that are interested in making an income in property investing, right? You may just say, but Jen, yesterday, isn't it that's what we said a property investor is? Yes. But think about this, right? Me saying I am in a business partnership with people that are interested in making an income through property versus property investor. Especially if you've got an idea like the Men in Black, that's always my thing. If you had an idea in your mind like the Men in Black, somebody property investor touching the girl is smelling like what from far, if you have that picture, somebody else is going to have that picture. So when I started working on my language, I started finding, aha, now I see it. But nonetheless, I digress with some of my nuggets to become a lot more clear with you guys in my journey. Nonetheless, we're going over so we found the property, we've created a research story in our mind. We go and we start driving around in the neighborhood to validate our story to see how far these properties are from each other. And because we've called those agents where the properties have been on the market for a longer period of time, we're going to go and view those properties. But not because we're entirely interested in those properties. We want to understand the frustrations that have come from those properties. And then the next layer is, do you have properties like this if it meets your requirement of distressed? Like you would have seen, I mean, who puts that bag in the ceiling if not to catch water? But nonetheless, in this little viewing that I showed you guys. So the whole aim is you doing your measure of market research to see what your neighborhood and your area looks like. And you're talking to the real estate agents to get a feel of who it is that you're going to be working with in the future. Kerry says, my question on this video was, what were the items on your checklist? I can send you the checklist, Kerry. So let's put property checklist. Let's just go wire equipping you guys as far as I can. So the checklist is really basic. I wouldn't On my checklist, I have the physical address. I mean, I have a smaller, in fact, in my book, I've got it there. In my book, I've got that checklist. I've got how I found this property, the details of the property, the real estate agent. And then my first question is, why is the person selling? To understand more about it. And then I start saying, look out for the cracks in the walls and small little things like that. Ask about the common area. What are the levies? What are the other expenses? I then start talking about what is the rates and taxes, what is the levies, what is the electricity, that monthly operating expenses that I was talking about. Why? Because I need to go back home on Wednesday, like what we're going to do on Wednesday. I need to now go back home to establish, by the way, how much is all of these things going to cost me in terms of holding costs and things of that nature? Because I want to populate that property calculator to see what's going to work for me. So in the email, it's going to be a loaded email, clearly. Thanks to Kerry, I'll send you guys that particular bit. So now that we've driven in the area, we now understand what we're looking for. We've viewed the property. We also now know if we're in conversation, when we start hearing the 3Ds, thanks to Edgar, I'm not going to forget the 3Ds. My guy, I'm going to give you credit every time. Every time I just say, oh, the 3Ds, I'm like, yeah, credits to Edgar. When we start listening out to what property investing opportunities sound and look like, then we are well on our way to start understanding and creating our story around that particular property. Nonetheless, then we go into, like what I shared with you guys, is we've done the property research, right? Now we want to do what we call due diligence. The due diligence really is some of that online activity we did before going to view the property. Now that we view the property, we've taken the pictures and whatnot. When we come back home, I want to understand, when I was driving around the area, whether bicycle or whether I was walking around the area, or whether whatever I was doing in that area to collect information on what's happening, I'm looking. Okay. The next best thing is I want to understand the reports that I need for this particular property, for me to understand, now that I've seen what the area can tell me, what the real estate agent has told me. A lot of the times you can get the Lightstone report from the real estate agent, okay? Or make friends are real estate agents. At one stage, that's what I was very good at doing, maneuvering myself around the debt that created up to my eyeballs and feeling like every time I go and click on Lightstone, I'm going to get a migraine. So I eventually started getting friends in real estate, and I was able to call on favors. Even though we had a subscription, I still had a scarcity mindset. Damn that scarcity mindset. But yeah, life coach that I am, I'm so glad that I was able to go through the process with a fellow life coach and start debunking the stories that I used to tell myself. In this due diligence, like you could see, we had gone online. What I now want to show you as part of the one trick that I shared just now with you, right? Let us go back onto the internet. This is a naughty trick. I hope they don't catch on to me, but this is at some stage what I did. Even after getting over the scarcity mindset, because there's most abundance out there. Why are we getting to scarcity mindsets? God alone knows. So anyway, now that I've done my stuff, now I'm doing my due diligence, right? I go into TPN. TPN does not pay me. I always make that disclaimer. I only love them because they give me access to what I need. So I go into TPN. I click on shop. When I click on shop, there's all these different reports, right? I'm looking for what they call property reports. If the real estate agent has not given me the Lightstone report, there's two type of ways you can get it off of TPN. You can go for the subscription of 575 Rand a month, or you can go for once-off reports, and you can see it is the amount of a can of Coca-Cola. So the investor report tells you about the different areas, from provincial to suburb level to municipal level and so forth, right? The property valuation report is about that particular property you are interested in. If you're interested in a flat that's in a complex, I go for the complex report. And then there are those townhouses that are in an estate. I then go for an estate report. And then these are the details here, right? So nonetheless, if I'm interested in a specific address, okay, I am going to thumbsuck an address. I'm not logged in for the sake of those that are not subscribed to TPN. You can easily go onto TPN and do exactly what I've just done right now. You'll click on generate report. It tells me I've got no credits, obviously, because I'm not logged in. I click on generate report again. It then takes me through to a map view. Now I'm going to thumbsuck. See, I don't know willows in Bloemfontein, right? How's about we say number 15? What is a common street name? You know, at some stage, Nelson Mandela. Yeah, you see. Swan, 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 swan. Okay, let's go into number 15, Nelson Mandela Drive. Let's hope it's not somebody's too much personal stuff, right? When I go in here, it's going to take me. No, it's not the best address I use. Okay, it's not the best address I use. Because I'm just trying my skillum ways out there, and let's say 15. You know, I always like saying Smith Street because Durban is where I've come from. Let's go for 15 Smith Street in Johannesburg. You see so that's not going to pull it up. Somebody's messaged. Okay, let's see. The message, somebody's given me an address maybe. Church Street, King Edward. Yeah, you see, I like what you guys have done there. I'm just so nervous, you know, I don't, so 20 Church Street. 20 Church Street. Okay. There's a Church Street in a lot of different places. Grafrenet. Let's try Grafrenet. Yeah, this is not making me be famous here. But anyway, what generally happens? Let's just do this. Now, there's one day I tried 20 Smith Street, and I think I chose Aliwal. I did this on there you go, on a YouTube video. So with me and my nervousness, you know, so the address will come up that we've just typed, right? And then tells you the legal description, which is the earth details, and it tells us the owner. So in my due diligence, I want to know that, you know, if I could find the owner's name. This is the sneak stalker view thing I do. Say, for example, this person was Jane Smith. I would then go onto social media, onto Facebook, and I'll search Jane Smith. And if I can see anyone that is in Eastern Cape, you know, sometimes people say live in, and I start poking around Facebook. And sometimes it will come up, other times it will take much longer. But what I start finding is that if I then can see Jane Smith's news feed, I want to see what's going on with Jane Smith that is selling her property in 20 Smith Street. And that's how sometimes I get a bit of a view of what people are really wanting. Think about it. If you know somebody close to you that's wanting to sell their property, and if they're one of those social media people, they're going to be telling you, oh, I can't wait to sell the property, or I'm moving to such and such an area, or life these days is so tricky, or whatever the case is. You can start seeing the motivating factor. So the whole aim of sharing that piece of information was going back to our due diligence. The due diligence here is really just to understand the most you can about that property. When you're busy with that due diligence, you're going to run numbers. That very same property valuation report that we were looking at right now, that is what we are going to be doing on Wednesday, right? Here's a shortcut on how you can actually just say, I think we did touch on this one yesterday, right? The shortcut on if a property, the purchase price is 500,000. I like to use 500,000 because that is an easy number to deal with, right? So if a property is 500,000, if in that area rent is 3,000, I then want to know my property that I'm going to buy, if if I call for a 3,000 rand rent, but the repayment to my bond is almost 5,000, is it actually worth it for me to investigate much into it? This is a kind of shortcut way I start asking myself, how much power really do I have to negotiate? If on the other hand, that property, the purchase price is 500,000, right? But the rental income is sitting at approximately 6,000. Then I ask myself, if I get 6,000, that other 1,000, can it cover my finance? Can it cover my monthly operating expenses? Because it can cover my bond, which then means there may be some sort of leverage in there. If I negotiate this property a little bit further down, could it meet my requirements? And that's what gives me that, oh, okay, cool, let me play around with it. For example, if you go and see a property that is on the market for 900,000 and you know you are only going to get 9,000 rand rent, I question again, am I going to be able to negotiate so far down that I'll be able to cover my monthly operating expenses and still have cash flow? Those are the things that actually keep me either mobile, saying, I'm not going back there. But I'm not saying back out. I'm just saying in some areas you need to be realistic, and in some areas you could try it. So try it, see what works for you, because that's what happens in the power of negotiating. One of the things that I realized over time is that when it comes to negotiating, how good or not am I? And so I would start listening to people like Grant Cardone. I would start listening to anything about negotiating online. And I knew my biggest lesson in negotiation was to keep this quiet and this open. If I've got one of these and two of these, it is for a reason. At the end of the day, I just need to know that back at the ranch, all I know, I need to be listening out for those different phrases that I need to negotiate on before I speak. Yes, Kerry, in terms of the Poppy Act, with the Poppy Act that's coming in, I'm sure at some given point, TPN will change those details. But this is why I'm saying it was a very sneaky little thing that I found at one given stage, that I could see parts of the owner's details. And therefore, I was able just to create a story of my own. It's not always the case that I do that, but when I saw that little slip, I want to call it a slip in code, I kind of worked with it for a while. In terms of the Poppy Act as well, yes, in terms of getting somebody's contact details, there's a thin line between what I would say love and nausea. So you'd be able to tread very lightly. So a very, very great point from Kerry. Do note the Poppy Act. So when I am looking out for some of this information, it is more on building a story that I want to understand later on about the person. Obviously, I'm going to buy the report. The report is going to give me limited information about the person, okay? And then I'm going to get a lot more information about the property that I'm actually looking for. And the biggest information you want to know on these property valuation reports, properties of that size, how much are they selling for in the area? Because you must remember that on Property 24, people are going to tell you the amounts that they desire. When you're getting those property valuation reports, they are going to tell you the amount that people actually paid for. So that's the two different things that you want to bring together. So cool stuff. Now, going back to negotiation. property wholesalers slash sourcing agents that are out there, one of the things I want to tell you or share with you and really bring home a lot is this. When it comes to negotiation, I say this with all the love. Don't just depend on what you think you're really good at, right? What I need you to do is really hone in on your skills. I had to learn to keep quiet. That, as you guys can notice, I can talk for hours. Maybe this is why my husband says, having a YouTube channel for you, Jen, really suits you because you can talk from here until the cows come back. um, One of the things I realized that I thought I had good negotiation skills. My block, and again, I will talk about my mental blocks because going back to yesterday's lesson, there were certain limiting beliefs I didn't realize that I had. I didn't realize it was still very resident in me until a situation showed up. I could go to a flea market and negotiate a pair of earrings. At one given point, you see these little cosmetic type earrings, from honey earrings to what all these different names, Justine and all of them that used to sell to the flea market. Me, I was the number one buyer of these earrings. My husband did a mad exercise one day and found that I had almost 120 of these earrings. In fact, this earrings, there was when I was still a QA manager in the workplace, my team member went to Mauritius and he came back and he says, the one thing I know about you, Jen, is that you love earrings. And he bought me this. He says, I wanted a token of Mauritius in you because he was from Mauritius. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I could negotiate about earrings. It's something that I loved. I could negotiate about simple things. My block in my mind was a property, a whole property, like a whole property. Is somebody going to listen to me about a whole property? And I never realized I had a bias until I got into negotiating. And all I remembered from the classroom was, do not offer more than the numbers that you worked out for. You will shoot yourself in the foot. And I remember one day hearing the words come out of my mouth saying, sorry, that is higher than what I budgeted for. Thank you so much for your time. The highest I can go to, and I put down my cheeky offer and I said, I wish you all the best. And that real estate agent said, are you willing to put that offer down in on paper? And then that was my next step where I almost pooped myself because at that time, as a property wholesaler, I had not signed an offer to purchase. I had always managed to find my way in a space where I would take the investor with me and they signed. And that day I was like, and I signed it. And I was the first one that I signed. But of course, I took caution. I came home, I went through it, closely, and I, showed my husband. We put the different suspensive conditions in there, and things worked out for the best. But nonetheless, I dropped that there to say, when we think we've got it, that's when we need to actually look into it because you don't know what limiting belief may come up at that given point. Cool stuff. So I know the first hour and some change, I've hopped on finding a property, how you're going to do what we call desktop research, which is going on to Property 24 and places like that. What other ways can we find property investing opportunities? I know I hopped on the pricing in terms of shortcuts, in terms of the analysis and doing your due diligence and negotiating. That goes to finding and negotiating a deal, which that is 2/3 of any deal that you need to go through. What we're going to do now in this second half of things, we're just going to touch on passive income and active income, how we can classify them, what goes into it. But just before we do that, I want to see if there's any questions, both here on Zoom and on YouTube. Doesn't look like there's any questions. If you guys have got any questions, please drop it down for me in the comments and in the chat, and then I'll be able to answer it accordingly. So let me go back into here. Cool. There's no questions. Nothing's popped up. Cool stuff. Cool. Let's get back into here. Now, in property, we all are looking either for passive income or active income. Property wholesalers, take notice. You need to know all the information and how to look at this information as if you are the one that's going to fund the deal. The reason why, because when you are presenting a proposal to a property investor, they want to know that you know your thing, right? And this is why I say for anyone interested in wholesaling, property investing is your foundation. If you don't have a foundation of understanding what we're going through over these next 4 days, your journey as a property wholesaler is going to be limited, and it's also going to be frustrated or frustrating. So now in terms of passive income, there is the different categories of buy to let, meaning buy to rent. So when you start hearing some of these terminologies, buy to let or buy to rent, you just know that somebody's looking for rental income. That is either they're going to rent out a flat or a house. When people are talking about multi-let, they're either going to rent out a house or flat to 2 or more people from 2 or more households who may share a kitchen, a bathroom, and a toilet. So what happens is in places like Melville, in Johannesburg, you'll find that there's a 3-bed, 1 bath, there's 3 young professionals, the call centers down the road. They could be all 3 call center buddies, right? And staying at, working at whichever institution down the road and sharing a property. All they knew is that they want to move closer to work, but they can't afford to buy a house as yet or rent out a whole place for themselves. So you'll find that some of the young professionals move in that particular space. Multi-let can vary. That is an example of how you can treat a multi-let. A house of multiple occupancy. This I found is a very English term. If you go into YouTube, type house of multiple occupancy, more than likely Samuel Leeds or anyone of that nature will come up quite a bit within the videos, and they'll be talking about an HMO, because an HMO is a lot more popular in my experience of the world in London. At one stage, I was in London what felt like every 5 minutes, thanks to Kovovo. That is just, pulled brakes. My sister's in London. So going into London, I would definitely understand the dynamics of an HMO, because what happens is there's a lot of people that are traveling from different countries, right? And they come into London. London is ridiculously expensive. So having your small little room and sharing a kitchen, a bathroom, and a toilet is a very popular way of living. I'm not saying it's exclusive to London. I'm saying the terminology HMO is what I find popularly comes up in England, right? Back here home, you just know that we living dormitory style, or we living in a style where there's quite a few of us in a commune type style. Those are the different words I have found in terms of the categories of buy to let back here home in South Africa. Student accommodation also can fall under this particular category, and some Airbnbs that are on a sharing capacity where they will share a kitchen, a bathroom, and a toilet. So these are the different categories of buy to let. The buy to let basics, whenever I look at certain things, right, especially from a wholesaler and now also as a property investor looking into properties that I also want to co-invest with others, I think to myself, okay, cool. What do I need to know about having a buy to let? I want to keep it simple. If it increases, or should I say what says in the slides, if increased costs do not lead to increased rentals, should I do it? The answer is no. Here's an example. If I go into a property, do I want to go and buy the finest tile under the sun? No, I want to go and get the conventional functional tile. Why? It's not cheap. I just know that if a tile breaks, I can go back to Builder's Warehouse or Tile Africa and get the same style of tile. Why? Because at the end of the day, you want to run a business, and your business should kind of start looking the same. Like you almost need to have this cookie cutter approach of what you would like your business to start looking at. When I was in the property investing classroom, they said keep to colors, and they had an acronym called BMW: beige, magnolia, and white. So I always say, if I'm going to get Wi-Fi and I'm going to get young professionals, now with Corona around, these young professionals will want to work from home. So having Wi-Fi is an added benefit. So somebody may want to pay an extra 200 Rand to stay in my house, my multi-let, right? And if I've got a 3-bed, 1-bath multi-let, these 3 people paying an extra 200 Rand actually cover the Wi-Fi, and I can have it uncapped potentially. You at the end of the day, you'd have to want to use wisdom. That is an increased cost that will be able to lead to increased rentals. Somebody's going to consider, do I pay 200 Rand for data? Think about you right now. When you walk into your house, if you've got the blessing of Wi-Fi, I call it a blessing because not everybody's got Wi-Fi, right? When you walk into your house, if you've got more than one device, your laptop, your iPad, your cell phone, whatever other devices catch on Wi-Fi, you walk in, everything catches on Wi-Fi. Think about it. It's an added benefit in your life. Now think about that from your tenant's point of view. In terms of buy-to-let basics, I also say, in terms of property management, from day one, you want to include property management costs, their fees, into your numbers, even if you are going to manage yourself. And the reason is, you may just be trying, you dabbling property 1, property 2, property 5. After property 5, you say, actually, I'm not making enough cash flow yet to leave work, or you start realizing, actually, the extra cash flow that's coming in is taking care of a certain need. I now realize I love my job. There's an engineer that I met that said, I never realized I love engineering until I got a second income that paid off the things that worried me, and it opened my mind back to engineering and why I started in engineering. So in terms of property management, you always want to include their fees up front, just for that one day when you decide, I want a property management company to look after my property. Insurance, like you will find in the numbers that we do on Wednesday, insurance matters. I've sat in the classroom so many times where I've just heard, before I got insurance, the proverbial geyser burst. And I really thought it was a story that people made up. Confessions again. I thought it was a story that people made up until I started interacting with students on a teaching level. And I realized, this is not a story, guys. If somebody can come and sit in the classroom and say, do you know that my geyser burst before I got the insurance? And it was all because I was told that the property is mine. And then I knew I've got some time to get the insurance, but never realized that the geyser could burst in this period of time. In terms of buy-to-let basics, you want to consider the maintenance costs, okay? And setting some sort of limits of, if I've got a standalone property, do I have a guy or a gal or somebody that's going to come and help me mow the lawn every second week? All right. I need to keep them in my costs, right? If the paint work starts peeling, like remember the video that we just saw that I went to go and view that property? Over a period of time, even if you've got really good paint will last 10 years. After that 10 years, you'd want to go back and start maintaining your property. Those are the different costs that, again, you want to keep in your numbers. Now, I added the last 2 points into this buy-to-let basics because it bit me in the proverbial behind. Late payment. I had a lease agreement / rental agreement that was so flimsy, it was not funny. When I owned my 2-bed, 1-bath in Sapphire Town, it frustrated me because at that time I didn't know what I didn't know. And then when I thought I got more smart because I found CNA actually sold rental agreements, I bought the rental agreement. It still had holds from here to Timbuktu and back. But what frustrated me the most is that I felt like I didn't have the power to have my tenants commit to, like, if they pay rent late, there's some repercussion. I didn't know it was possible until I met the TPN rental agreement. I have never looked back. So in the TPN rental agreement, again, TPN doesn't pay me. It's the tools that we use for our business to make sure that we run our property business as proper as possible, right? In there, it gives repercussions. If you do not pay the last day of every month, by the first day of every month of the new month, I will then be able to mark you as a slow payer or whatever the case is. There's repercussions to these things. Nonetheless, I also want to understand in the area that I'm driving and understanding my due diligence and my market research, what are the typical tenants in that area? Those are the basics I want to keep in my mind. Okay. These basics will play in our conversation on Wednesday with the running of the numbers. Like I shared with you on the emails I've shared, that these first 3 days literally build that foundation to get to this milestone of when you're running numbers, you now start seeing the bigger picture as to why you need this information. Wholesalers, you need to know this. Why? Because when you're putting a deal together, you need to be able to remind your investors about the basics. Moving along in passive income, tips for finding and vetting tenants. If you are not using a property management company, I'm wanting to say create a young ad on Gumtree. So sometimes, actually, this is an idea I got from Rieta. Rieta said to me, the one thing that I found interesting, Jen, when I was doing my desktop research about certain areas, is that I'd go onto Gumtree. I would create a bit of a spoof ad and say, I have got a 2-bed, 1-bath. I'm looking for young professionals that stay close to XYZ. I would listen to the type of people that will call me. Why? Because I want to understand that there's no language barrier between us. Because if something ought to happen negatively in the property, I don't want us to fight even on top of a language barrier. So I wanted to know that I can speak freely and the person understands me, and they understand me and I understand them. I wanted that open communication. So in that, you can create an ad in an area of your choice to see the type of people that will call you, or to see that people will call you in the first place. That's when you start actually kind of think, oh, okay, cool. So if there's not many phone calls, maybe this area may not be as popular. The second thing that you can do in terms of finding and vetting tenants is, like I shared in the 2 slides before, do not use a standard lease agreement. A lease agreement is a rental agreement from CNA or from the internet. I would say to you, go and get something proper. And I always point to TPN because that for me has worked for my business. In terms of vetting the tenants, right? Some people will agree and some people will disagree. But in this, I ask for bank statements. I ask for 3 months bank statements if all the different service providers can ask for bank statements to confirm your current address and confirm your employment. I believe I'm running a property business. I can do the same. However, I look at the bank statements slightly different. Why would I look at the bank statements? I want to know that in the last 3 months, if this is March right now and I get your March bank statements, I'm going to highlight all the Fridays and all the Saturdays in March. And then I'm going to also highlight the first things that go off of your bank account when your money comes in. If in the first 3 things, rent is not one of those things, that's an alarm for me. It's my property business. And I'm wanting to know, okay, cool. If these are all debit orders, after your debit orders, when do you pay your rent? And has it been consistent for 3 months? I'm wanting to really go as far as possible to understand when you are spending your money, are you keeping your household in top of mind? Because some people will fight with you. I once had a tenant that said to me, do you think I am a mom that doesn't care about her family? I care about my family. I want a roof over my head. My son, and let rip. She let rip on me. And I'm like, okay, you can fight with me, but all I'm wanting to understand is like, where are we? Because at the end of the day, what I have found in my space is that there's irregularities with rent. And if your family means all of this to you, where does this leave me? Because at the end of the day, if it was somebody else's place, they would have kicked you out three months ago. Because each month there's a different story. Should we not just create an agreement between the two of us? And what you are delayed with, we spread it over the next few months. I'm trying to look for a solution. And she let rip with me. And then eventually I just realized, okay, cool. This person is not going to stand for reason. They may not want to see me because they may be emotional and close to the detail. But back then, this was before education. Back then, I was so frustrated. I was so close to bringing a bouncer friend of mine to say, brah, do something. But at the end of the day, I was like, Husa. So I do say some of these strategies may not tick people's boxes. But what it does help me with at a stage when I did this, now we've got Frost Peak doing all of this, right? And they're using TPN and quite a few other tools. But when I was doing this, I really looked for something like that because if somebody says they look after their family, they love their family, yes, they've got, if there's challenges, which is true for everybody, surely you would be able to sit down and reason with me that we can make a payment agreement. But anyway, I labor the point, but that is my stance on finding and vetting tenants. And that is around just the basics in terms of buy to lets. In terms of an active income, I call flipping an active income because if you haven't found a property to renovate and sell and you're doing nothing, you're not getting an income, right? So in terms of flipping, I want to say research and know the fair market value, just as you would as a sourcing agent. Find distressed properties because those fixed upper properties make for a good transformational story. Establish what your refurb / renovation costs are because that's going to talk into the running of the numbers and how much money you can potentially make from the deal. When you are busy with a builder / contractor, they're very different, I believe, in business. Many of the guys that are working in the team of a contractor are literally working on a wages pack. They get their brown envelopes on a Friday, and respectfully, when they don't, tools go down. So you also want to manage your expectations with your contractor and literally have them on a schedule and ensure that they are also paying their guys. I know that is infringing in somebody else's space, but we've had a scenario where some of the guys literally just put their tools down and said that guy didn't pay me. And now we had to sit and deal with like, what the heck? What do you mean? We've already paid him XYZ. When we talked to the guy, he's like, but I needed to buy a backing because how are they going to get to work every day? I'm like, but did you even explain it to them? So you want to also manage your stakeholders when you are doing any sort of renovations, whether in a flip or whether in a rental property. When you pay, you pay on invoice. Obviously, you work this out with the builder. On some builders will say, I want 75% of the money upfront, and then the rest of the money you can pay me at the end. It's a thin line between love and nausea. And again, if you are a sourcing agent, you may not have to deal with this trouble. However, if you are the investor, you may have to deal with this trouble. But where sourcing agents could deal with this is here. From a sourcing agent perspective, right? You could sell the deal to an investor. The next level of making money as a sourcing agent is being involved in the renovation / refurb / repair process. And you'd be able to ask potentially for 10% of the renovation cost so that you can manage the project. That is the second level of making money as a sourcing agent. That's when I start calling you a deal maker, because you're looking at the transaction process on where can you make money. Moving along, bring the property up to functional level, both for flips as well as for property rentals. Why? You don't want to get too fancy about things. You actually want to make sure that people can live, they can live comfortably, and whatever needs to be replaced is that sort of functional thing that's always going to be in the shop. Here's an example. When you go for fancy items that add no value, you could go get a grow tap. So now, for fun, somebody asked me one day, Jen, why do you like picking on the grow mixers? I don't like picking on the grow mixers, but I want to illustrate a point to you. The grow mixer, let me share my screen. If you type, I've got no problem with the German engineering taps, right? But if you go and you type in grow, right? You see this shower head is all of 500, and it can start off from a very basic shower head. But with that same 200 rand, you could go to Builder's Warehouse and find a nicer shower head, for example. When you look at some of the pricing on these things, and there's a mixer that I'm talking about, right? Why would I want to pay 1,000 rand for a mixer, and then I can go to Builder's Warehouse and I can pay 200 rand or 300 rand for a fully functional tap? So this is what I mean by avoid expensive items, because expensive items will leave you in the lurch. They will add no value to what you are doing, and therefore it's like, why? We are coming close to an end, ladies and gents. I just wanted to go through some of this hectic stuff, and then I will prelude as to what will happen for tomorrow. In terms of flipping, this is the one thing I learned from a point of view looking for my own house, right? The buying decision is generally made within a few minutes of seeing property. Does the property have curb appeal? Meaning, is it neat? Is it tidy? Does it attract people? So those of you that are into flipping, does it attract people? Those of you that may say, you know what, I look at a property and I think to myself, if I sell it over time, have I kept it neat? Will it emotionally sell to somebody that's looking for a home versus a property investing opportunity? The second thing is the front of the house must be completely clutter-free and neat. All I'm saying is you don't have to go fancy on anything, but just make it appealing. And as far as possible, if you've got trees leading up to the main house, avoid that the trees kind of block the door like that, because it looks a bit dodgy. Now, in the classroom, I learned this front door thing. Paint your front door either like a strong color, and they give it an example of either a very bright red or a very strong blue. Make the door handles attractive. And I always like bringing something from the classroom into my stuff, right? Because I found some of these things very interesting, because my door is like it's an offset of a red color, and it's got these big handles. It's like this handle here, like this is a cupboard handle, it's got one of these handles here. So I quite like something like that. In terms of the house colors, like I shared with you, inside and outside, what we call beige, magnolia, and white, you want to keep the colors simple. You also want to keep them accessible, because at some given point, you're going to actually look at these colors and say, can I find this paint again wherever? But also what happens, these colors are so neat, they're neutral. So people can already envision their actual furniture and things like that in a very neat looking property. And when it comes to flipping, if you go in, go slightly under market value. That is something that I've learned over a period of time that will hold you in good stead. People are going to be excited. Hey, you know what? I was able to buy a property that is newly renovated, and now that it's newly renovated, I don't have to do anything in there, and I bought it less than next door that's got furniture in it. So it's a whole psychological thing. So that is a mouthful for this evening. Like I shared with you, the first half was for me to emphasize about your finding the deal, understanding the skill set that you have. The most amazing thing is that when you are short of knowledge, you don't have the full picture. But when you've got as much knowledge as possible and you actually understand the situation, you then get the big picture. So back to the deal life cycle, right? So you buy a distressed property, you renovate, and then you employ your strategy. If your strategy is to flip and you are not able to flip that particular property, you have an exit strategy to rent that property for a short period of time and then eventually go back onto the market to sell the property so that you can fulfill your strategy. You may be in a situation where you buy this distressed property, or you may buy a property from a motivated seller. It may not be all that distressed. It may need a little bit of attention, and you want to rent this property. And then you find that you simply are not getting the right people to rent, and things are taking too long. You get frustrated. Can you sell it straight away? Did the numbers work out for selling the property as an exit strategy so that you can fulfill your strategy from that particular deal? So, again, realize, guys, it's a circle of life. Many things in property investing is simple, but you need to get into the strategy to understand some of the roadblocks that will eventually come along the way. Tomorrow, what we will do is touch on finance. In terms of finance, some people look at bond originators, they tap into equity, their credit cards. What we actually tapped on yesterday when we were talking about raising funds. So it's a very, very short conversation that we're going to have. And then we're going to go into creative finance, where we'll talk a little bit more about sourcing, about joint ventures, and about angel investors. And then I'll also share with you guys some of the things around business and tax, but that's going to be like a 5-minute discussion as far as possible. I will give you homework, and that homework will then be a video that TJ did with Garrett Shepperson online. And, that will be able to speak to the business and tax. So you'll see why some things will go rapidly fast tomorrow. And then I will close off tomorrow with lessons through my deals that I think is of value to you. So those are the components that we're going to go over tomorrow, notwithstanding that we are going to have 2 visitors. The one visitor will talk about her journey in property, and the other visitor is our attorney that will come through. So make sure that your questions that you're going to be asking tomorrow are going to fulfill the need of you speaking to an attorney. And I'm sure that over time she'll be able to share with you a couple of things that you really, really need to know. So on that note, I want to see if there's any questions so that you guys can close off, so we can close off today well within time. Edgar says, how do you assess a deal brought to you by a sourcing agent? Can you ask for references and confirm with that reference whether the deal sourced to them was good? Absolutely, Edgar. Absolutely. As a investor, as a sourcing agent myself / property wholesaler, what I tend to do is this, right? I have first signed an NDA, meaning it's a non-disclosure agreement. I have a conversation with an investor. Hi, investor. My name is Genevieve. I'm a sourcing agent / property wholesaler. I look for deals in and around the West Rand. Okay. You will say, hi, I'm Edgar. I'm looking for deals in the West Rand. Wonderful, Edgar. Edgar, what I'd like to understand from you, what is your strategy? So that I can understand that within the West Rand, when you talk to me about your strategy, I can see if it's going to work in that area from my experience, because I'm sure you've done some sort of research about it. You'd answer me yes or no. You tell me your strategy, then you've already told me your area is West Rand. Then I will ask you, in terms of looking for types of property, Edgar, are you looking for standalone property? Are you looking for sectional titles? What is your comfort in here, right? And then I'll be able to ask you, Edgar, in terms of financing the deal, are you going to go the bond route, the cash route? Is there something that I need to know about how you're going to fund the deal? So that's the sort of conversation that I have, right? When I've got that information, then I say, Edgar, what I like to do is I think I can help you. I'm going to send you a non-disclosure agreement. It just says that we've got the freedom to share the information that I come up with. When I find the deal, I'm going to put it on a proposal. I'm going to send you the TPN property valuation report or Lightstone property valuation report. And I'm going to send you a video of what I did. I'm going to share with you my market research as well as my due diligence. I believe personally, as a wholesaler, you should be able to play open cards like that. Why? There's somebody that's going to let go of their hard earned money. And that's where I say building that relationship with the property investor, you need to be able to like really call a spade, right? And so when I do send this to you, Edgar, then I'm going to say to you, Edgar, go through this information, right? But if you need to drive the area, drive the area. If you need to go and confirm the information and go and buy your own property valuation reports, do that because you're going to have all the details of the deal, right? And then, Edgar, I want to take it further. Can I set up an appointment so that we can go and view the property together? I'm going to introduce you as a business partner because that is how the real estate agent understands how we're working. All right. They don't need to know I'm working on your behalf because you may not have the time. Right. So with that, we go and review the property. And there are some days that I'll say, okay, cool. If you're happy with your due diligence, with the information I've supplied and viewing this property from the property knowledge that you have, um, let's go ahead with the deal. And then you are able to go ahead with the deal. So when you are making a decision, Edgar, you are making a decision coming from a well-informed perspective. That is one. Two, I have learned the most frustrating people that are property investors are those that do not have property investing education. I love them, but they have been the biggest frustrations in my life because I literally have to teach them along the way. And when the smallest thing goes wrong, they blame me. And I'm like, no, let's not blame each other. Let's find a solution. So, what I tend to do, I do have a bias. And my bias is I want you to at least have foundational knowledge of property investing before I sell you a deal. Or you need to at least have a portfolio to understand the type of numbers that we're running, and you run it in your way to make sure it's going to work for you. That is my criteria I learned over time. Once bitten, twice shy. I trust that that answers your question. Céline Klantler says, is there a general way to charge a sourcing fee? For example, estate agents usually charge 5 to 7% of the purchase price. Is it also like that with sourcing? There are three ways, and then I'm going to unpack that during the numbers, but I will answer the question. The first way, some people are of the opinion that you can charge 10% of the purchase price or 10% of the profit. In reality, sometimes that 10% is a huge amount of money, especially if the property is 600,000. All of a sudden, you are charging 60,000 for sourcing a deal, and the investor who's going to actually go into that deal will end up making 40,000. Then I start saying, numbers. What my husband and I had done when we initially got into the game, we said at work, we get paid X amounts of money per hour. So if we work Monday to Friday, it's a normal rate. If we work overtime, which is anything, and we're going to view properties after 6, which I want to encourage you never to do, go and visit a property at night. Not good. But I'm just saying this was our logic back then. You go into time and a half. If you go and view the property on a Saturday, it's time and a half. If you view a property on a Sunday, it's double time. And then you said, then we will double it because we've got the education to back up what we're doing. So, Céline Klantler, it's not a gray area. It is something that you would have to, on a personal basis, as a sourcing agent, work through. There are some deals that came as simple as this. Jen, I've got a property. You know those funny properties that you like? This is a real estate agent calling me. Those funny properties that you like, I've got a property like that. So before I put it on the market, come and see it. Okay, cool, no problem. I go, I view it, literally run the numbers same day. If I've got a type of investor that goes for this, I was able to call, quick turnaround time. I've just gone the second time with the builder, third time with the property investor, and things have happened progressively. I promise you, over time, if I want to build a relationship with that particular investor, I undercharge them because if it's an investor I want to have a longer relationship with in this property game, I undercharge them and I say, usually I would sell this particular deal for say 10,000. Today I'm going to sell it to you for 7,500 because I do believe we can work together in the future. See how this deal pans out for you, and then we can move forward. So again, it's become what I know now. If I knew back then, some things I would like, oh, you crazy. But I was also sowing seeds back then to get into where I am today. So I trust that answers your question. Lehlokonola says, how do you negotiate with a contractor to come in and evaluate the renovation costs every time you see a potential deal? That's the thing, Lehlokonolo. I found over time, you start building an eye for certain things, right? I start seeing, is there really good money to be made? So I don't always take a builder with me, because for me, what I found in my experience, not every deal is that type of deal. I tend to see quite a few properties before I see that it materializes into a deal. The second component is that I've got more than one person. I learned that by the fourth time the one builder comes with me and he said, Mama, when are these things going to ever materialize? That's when I'm like, yo, I'm going to be in trouble here if something doesn't work out. So I started being a little bit more versatile with my people that I do take there. Um, so this is how I've eventually worked around that. Lehlokonola says, how do you also make sure that he doesn't overprice building material? Look, for me, I find uh, um, a renovation cost, and then I ask if I really see that this deal is heading somewhere. I ask for a breakdown. Okay, the professional ones will have a breakdown. Those that others will tell you, but Mama, I know my job. I do this here, whatever. I'm like, my guy, with all due respect, I also need to sell you to the person that's going to buy this property. So if you don't give me something like that shows me your pricing, then I don't know. All right. So I do find that I work around that. Other times I just take the overall figure and I say to the investor, at the end of the day, I've used this guy once or twice. If you've got somebody else to use, I would then say go wild, because I don't have a detailed pricing schedule of the building material. So again, very frank and to the honest, to the point, being honest with the investor. Kerry asks, did you buy from auction? Ooh, no. I'm scared of auction. Okay, don't laugh at me, but I'm laughing at myself for Asne. So in my mind, I'm broke back then, right? 2017, I'm growing in debt. I don't even know I'm in 5 million debt. This is my scenario. That's why I laugh like that, Kerry. I'm in growing debt. These creditors are calling me, they're annoying me. In my mind, when someone said auction, I'm saying to myself, me, I must go and pay the share of the court. What? How much money to go and just stand as part of the people that are bidding? And there's 10% of what? I don't even understand. My world, I didn't have money for it. So therefore, I was not interested in it. So this is why I suppose it took me a very long time to understand, what does the online research look like when I'm looking for property deals, right? Um, so I avoided auctions altogether. Then there's this one mad day. My husband says, Jen, I found a private auction. I'm like, where, baby? He says, no, come with me. It's 11 o'clock, wherever. I think it was Bears Valley. The Bears Valley. Anyway, we go through. Now like, I don't know what to do with myself, because what I heard about auctions and what I'm walking into, I first asked him, my guy, did you pay money to get to this auction? And he says, no, it's a private auction and you can go and view the property 1 hour before the bidding starts. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, cool. We go and review the property. There was about 7 of us that was there. Funny story, guys. It's something I've never seen in my life. So anyway, we start. The guy starts a bidding. You know how TV, the guy sounded dust. So in my mind, I'm so chuckled. I'm overwhelmed. Wara wara. I'm standing there. You can see people are bidding. People are bidding. There was this one guy, white linen suit. Never forget him. You know that white summer linen suit type vibe. He's got these sandals that are pretty boy sandals, and he's busy on his phone. And then he just piped up and he shot a price out there that was even way higher than what the auctioneer was saying. Everybody got a shock because this guy hadn't spoken, ne? And we all turned and we looked at him. And then next person we poof, gone to this guy. What just happened? So that's my small, short, finite experience on an auction. I was like, I'm sorry, guys. This is too high level for me. Maybe when I am in another space, I may just try it. However, from a sourcing point of view, I believed it wouldn't work, and it didn't. From an emotional point of view, it was just too fast. And then, during training, some people will tell you what happens in auctions. I don't have proof of syndication and things like that, so I don't want to say something I don't have proof of. But there are rumors, and in my mind, that emotional moment that happened quickly like this, and this guy got the property, and the auction was over in less than 5 minutes. That was an experience of note. If you are an investor or you have the cash, is it better to look for property for yourself or use a wholesaler? It's a personal preference. I find that people that are really pressed for time use wholesalers. Actually, 95% of my investor database are pressed for time. They've got an 8 to 5 job. They've got a lot of different other commitments and things like that. And then there's a 5% that are like, you go and do it. I can do something better with my time. Like whatever, you're going to pay me. Okay. So it really is a personal choice. When it comes to investing and looking into deals this side of life, I find that my superpowers is that because I've looked for deals for so long, I've been said no to so much. My offers have been rejected enough. I'm that girl that when I walk in and they say that, then I'm like, no problem, baby. See you second half, and it doesn't faze me. So yeah, it really goes back to you. Have you ever had property where you have lost a lot? Yo, Kerry, we'll be sitting here, my darling. So one mad deal. I tried to massage the numbers. The real estate agent, and I mean the property investor saw through it. We both had a chuckle. I was in an emotional space. Another deal, I forgot something in the numbers. The property investor trusted me with their life. And somewhere, somehow, we just broke even. And that day, I cried myself, snot in trana. And then there was a property investing event. I think it was sometime the end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020. There was two gentlemen, Matt and Shane, they were sharing their story about how their first deal popped and it just worked for them. And they rode on the success of their first deal. But their second deal, they lost an investor 160,000. And that day I stopped crying for the break-even point. So it's really relative. It really is relative. So I chuckle only because some things are real up in this world, hey? So I'm trusting, ladies and gents, that we're on the top of the hour of 2 hours. You've invested the last 4 hours yesterday and today. And I trust that your investment on time has not been, actually, no, let me take that back. It's so negative to say that. I trust that your investment of time has been fulfilling. There's quite a bit that I have shared this evening from a kind of technical point of view, But like I shared with you, a lot of what we do leads up to running numbers. And that's why we emphasize a lot on running numbers, because all of these things now need to be first considered before you put a whole lot of numbers on an Excel sheet. The questions that you guys have asked so far have been amazing. Thank you so much for contributing positively to this particular training. We're 50% of the way. I trust that tomorrow, when we talk about finance, business, and tax, the lessons through my deals, having a conversation with Silna, as well as chatting to one of my students, that we are going to make the best of our time together tomorrow as well. And then just to round off, I'm going to send you homework tomorrow morning. I'm going to refer to the 9 strategies at one stage that I spoke about on YouTube on how to find different property investing opportunities. I'm going to speak to a viewing tips video that I've done recently on why I do what I do, and the checklist that Carrie was talking about, that property checklist for things you need to look out for. I would love that you expand on that, because that is just a template of when you are starting out and you're not sure what type of questions that you need to actually ask the real estate agent. Would it be fair to say that we have come to the end of the session this evening? If you agree, in the comments and in the chat, just type yes. Then at least I know I've got the cue from you guys. Awesome sauce. So there's a lot of yeses coming through. I really appreciate your time. What I would love, and if you don't mind, I would love that you click on the share button. If you are on YouTube, share this particular post with your community. See how far that we can get people out there educated around property investing, just so that they know when they do get into property investing, it's not as simple as what many people think. Actually, it is simple, but it's not easy, so that they can start off on a very much more of a better standpoint than many of us have. So I trust you guys well. Sleep tight. Come tomorrow. Tomorrow we maybe, I'm not sure, maybe we may go over time. But I will certainly manage time with my guests, and also not to shortchange you of the questions that you will have for my guests. Kerry says, thank you. This training really means a lot to me, and it is opening my eyes. Loyolo says, thank you. What's SM? For your time, Auntie Jen. What's SM? You see now. You're reaching me with acronyms today. So I'm okay. I see you. I see you. He says, thanks so much. Next time I'll remember. Thank you, SM. You can see, imagine. My children are 6 and 13. So I don't understand the Japanese. My 13-year-old boy talks to me. So please forgive. So thank you so much. Guys, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Be safe, be cool, but most importantly, just be the amazing person that you are. And I shall see you second.